We're here today talking some Dynasty deep stashes. As always, guys, if you like Dynasty content, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on this video. And if you're new to the channel, you don't know, and if you've watched this for a while, you do know that when we talk about deep stashes, we go deep into the roster. We're not talking about the RB2 for this team, the wide receiver 3 for this team. We go deep into the rosters because I want it to be useful for whether you play in shallow leagues or if you play in those 12-team, 30-man roster type of leagues, that these guys potentially could be out there on their waiver wire and maybe they improve their value or their stock or get an opportunity this year. So you're not going to see any Jordan Whittingtons out there or anything like that. We go deeper than that. Starting off with the quarterback position, we got Cooper Rush, and he's on the Cowboys. He's not on the Cowboys. He's actually on the Ravens, which maybe people don't even know that he's on the Ravens, but he's backing up Lamar Jackson. Cooper Rush is, and I just think that almost every single QB2 in a Superflex league should be rostered. I've seen Cooper Rush out there on my waiver wire, even in some of these deeper leagues, and I've seen it. And we've seen that Cooper Rush, when he comes in, that potentially he comes in and he can put up decent numbers, right? I think last year he averaged about 210 passing yards, a little under a touchdown and a half per game. Nothing to write home about, but these are guys that, man, you can get desperate in the middle of a season if guys get injured in a super flex league, and even a guy putting up 15 points in a 6-point per passing touchdown league is useful to start at the quarterback position, and it's probably going to be better than a lot of players in that super flex spot. So Cooper Rush backing up Lamar Jackson. I know Lamar Jackson's been healthy and awesome the last 2 years, but it wasn't that long ago when we were questioning, can this guy stay healthy? I think he had back-to-back years in 21 and 22 where he couldn't stay healthy and he missed 4 or 5 games. So he's a rushing quarterback that's always going to elevate a little bit, at least the risk of injury. So I do think Cooper Rush should be rostered. Into the running backs here, we got Rasheen Ali. We're going to have a lot over the next 3-4 guys. They're going to be a lot of these second-year players. Basically, if you were watching this channel last year, some Dynasty rookies last year that I was considering deep stashes. Rasheen Ali is one of them. I kind of like Rasheen Ali coming out of Marshall. Thought he had, pretty good film. He was productive. And he went to the Ravens, and at that time, it was Derrick Henry, obviously, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, who was still recovering from his injury, and then Rasheen Ali. Like, that's kind of all they had on their depth chart. And I said, hey, if something happens to Derrick Henry, I don't think Justice Hill is going to be that type of player to go in there and take 15 carries a game. I think Justice Hill kind of keeps his role, and then they plug someone else in. And I still kind of feel that way. And you look at their depth chart; it's still the same. It's the same faces. It's Derrick Henry. It's Justice Hill. It's Keaton Mitchell. Now Keaton Mitchell is healthier, which is good to see. But I still kind of think, like, if Derrick Henry gets hurt, you're probably going to get a mix of all three of these guys. And someone like Rasheen Ali, to me, is a better candidate to take 12 to 15 carries on early downs than Keaton Mitchell or Justice Hill. So I would kind of recommend maybe going out there and stashing Rasheen Ali if you have space on your roster, of course. Kendall Milton. This one's probably one of the deeper ones on this. There's a couple pretty deep ones here, but Kendall Milton, who was undrafted out of Georgia last year. He was undrafted by, I think he went to the Eagles originally. Now he's on the Bengals. And, Bengals are a situation where, like, obviously it's Chase Brown's team. Zach Moss is still there. Samaje Perine's there. Taj Brooks is there, a rookie that they drafted. And then you have Kendall Milton, I think, would be kind of like the RB5. There's probably a couple other guys on that list as well. But they could save a couple $1 million if they move on from Zach Moss. And I wouldn't be shocked if they do and just kind of roll with, Perine, the rookie, and Brooks, and maybe a guy like Kendall Milton as their running back depth behind Brown. He's a bigger back, so maybe he has that opportunity to, if something were to happen to Chase Brown, maybe get 10, 12 carries a game or something like that. So Kendall Milton, a lot deeper, and I much prefer some of these other guys on this list than him. But again, if they're already rostered, that he might not be a terrible stash at all. Sione Vaki, and I did look that up. Sione Vaki for the Detroit Lions, another second-year player, Dynasty deep rookie stash last year, now just a regular Dynasty deep stash this year. Sione Vaki did nothing last year. I think he had 9 touches, 6 carries, and 3 catches. That's all he had. and he was basically he didn't really play running back in college. He was a safety that would get some carries on offense, right? His last year in college. So he had 42 carries in 2023 at Utah, but he played mostly safety. He was, I guess, a hybrid, but 42 carries, I think, in 12 games. So he's getting like 3 or 4 carries a game or something. I don't even know what his snap percentage was necessarily in college, but the Lions drafted him in the 4th round. Now, there's a good chance that he's just kind of a special teams guy because they already, teams already use running backs on special teams like punt coverage and stuff. And then the fact that he played safety and can tackle is a plus, kind of like Khalil Mullins, the rookie out of Michigan on the Titans this year, former linebacker. But part of me thinks also, like, do you really draft someone in the 4th round with in mind saying, okay, they're going to just play on special teams? I feel like those are reserved more for like 6th and 7th round picks, not necessarily like for 4th round picks. Now, I'm not saying that's, he's going to go beyond that. But what I'm saying is, do you really draft him saying this is all he's going to be? Or do you think, hey, this guy has potential, he can develop? Obviously, he's not going to pass up Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not going to pass up David Montgomery. Craig Reynolds is still on the team as the RB3, and the team really likes Craig Reynolds. But, if something were to happen to Gibbs or Montgomery, or God forbid both of them, does Sione Vaki kind of move up and get an opportunity with this team second year now that he's kind of understanding the offense a little bit? So he's one of those that I'm really excited to stash if I have the space. Into some wide receivers here. We have Casey Washington, Falcons wide receiver, another one of my favorite. I kind of had a couple favorites last year. I would say it was Jordan Whittington, it was Casey Washington, and like Rasheen Ali were probably my top 3, or definitely in my top 5. Definitely Jordan Whittington and Casey Washington at the wide receiver positions were some of my favorites. Whittington kind of hit in the sense of like he's on everyone's roster. Casey Washington didn't get any opportunity last year. I'm not even sure if he even made a catch last year. That's how little he played. But one of the reasons I like Casey Washington last year, and by the way, update, he did have 1 catch. One of the reasons I liked him because I thought kind of beyond Darnell Mooney. This was, I know they brought in Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore tore his ACL or whatever. He injured himself and was out for the year early on. Beyond Darnell Mooney, I didn't see a whole lot of wide receiver depth on this team. Now, Ray McLeod really stepped up and took on a pretty big role and was good last year. And so he's a guy that is probably established in that wide receiver 3 spot. But beyond that, it's like Cordell Hodge and Casey Washington. So I think there's a very good chance Casey Washington, who was a 6th-round pick, is now second year on the team, is going to make the roster. And I'm hoping he can move up to like that next, wide receiver 4 spot. And so if something happens to a guy like Ray McLeod or a guy like Darnell Mooney, someone like Casey Washington could step up. And I liked his film. Thought he looked like a good player that could, and I know he was impressing in training camp a little bit as well. So Casey Washington is definitely still one of my favorite stashes. And again, when I was talking about stashing these guys last year, I said, this is for 2025. This is not for 2024. And here we are in 2025. We'll give these guys another shot. Demarcus Robinson. Now, I talked about a lot of second-year players. Demarcus Robinson is not a second-year player. Demarcus Robinson is a player that's been in the league for since 2016 or 17, I believe. He's been in the league for a while. We've only really heard his name the last couple of years. By the way, if you're Demarcus Robinson and your career, you get basically Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Stafford as your quarterbacks, like, that's pretty nice. Now you get Purdy, But anyways, we've heard Demarcus Robinson's name the last 2 years. 2023, the last 6 games or so, he kind of started to, come on. Was decent last year, 500 yards, seven touchdowns. And if you play in any type of deeper league, like in our listener leagues, we play in 12 teams start 12. So that's 144 players each week are getting started. Demarcus Robinson, I went back and looked. He was like 152nd in this league scoring system. He was like 152nd overall player, which means like during bye weeks, Demarcus Robinson was plugged in a lot of these teams. And I found him on the waiver wire in one of our listener leagues. So, and we play in 30-man rosters, including the taxi. By the way, if you want to join the listener league, join our Discord. It's free. We're trying to potentially put together another one or maybe some redraft stuff. We will see. But guys like Demarcus Robinson in those type of leagues are useful players, and he's going to the 49ers. There's some crossover in system with McVay and Shanahan. And one of the reasons why Demarcus Robinson is valued on these teams is because they They're the type of system that desperately needs their wide receivers to run block. And that's a big thing with these system is their wide receivers need to run block. Demarcus Robinson last year played 82% of the snaps. Any wide receiver playing 80 or more percent of the snaps is going to put up numbers, is going to be good in deeper leagues, is going to be really good in best ball. And so Demarcus Robinson, I think goes to the 49ers. I know everyone's saying, okay, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, so he's not going to get on the field. And that might be true. That being said, Ayuk, there's some stuff happening. He might miss the beginning of the year. Ricky Pearsall, if he doesn't break out, I think it's because of the run blocking stuff. So, like Demarcus Robinson, a professional wide receiver that I think this team's going to trust, just like they kind of trust Juwan Jennings, could have a better season than we think if he can get on the field. So I think he definitely should be rostered, as well as the next guy who's kind of like the same reasons for Demarcus Robinson is Mac Hollins, who, by the way, Mac Hollins, I believe, led the Bills in touchdown catches last year. I could be wrong about that, but he led them in something. I think he had like 5 or 6. He's another wide receiver that he gets on the field. Why does he get on the field? And just kind of looking at his snap share, he played in where are we at here? He played in 66% of the snaps. He had several games where over 70%. Why? Because he can play on the outside, he can play that X receiver spot, and he can run block, and teams value that. Now he goes to a better situation, Mac Hollins, on the New England Patriots. And, you have Stephon Diggs, you have Demario Douglas, you have Kyle Williams, but someone like Mac Hollins could be kind of a thorn in the side of those type of players, especially if Kyle Williams doesn't develop the way we think we hope he does year one, especially if Stephon Diggs is a little bit older and coming off an injury. Like Mac Hollins could be a player for the Patriots, and it would not shock me at all. So he's a guy that I also, when I'm going to pick up, especially in best ball leagues, especially in these deeper leagues, and say, hey, these guys could surprise you at the end of the year and be like, oh yeah, this was a usable piece all year long. Into some tight ends, just want to remind you guys to hit the like and subscribe button. Help us get to 1,400 subscribers. Tanner McLaughlin, rookie rookie tight end last year for the Bengals. Didn't do anything. I think he was injured most of the year. He was drafted in the 6th round. I was kind of telling people last year, like, hey, if you want a piece of the tight end room for the Bengals, everyone was going after Eric Hall. I think Eric Hall was being drafted in like the 3rd round of a lot of people's rookie drafts. I kind of told people Tanner McLaughlin's free. Like, take a shot on him. Kind of said the same thing about Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft a few years ago, where everyone was taking Luke Musgrave in the 2nd round, and I said, hey, Tucker Kraft is like free. Go and pick him up. That worked out. Now Tanner McLaughlin hopefully is healthy. Didn't really play last year at all. Now he's in a situation. Obviously, Mike Gesicki's there, but I think people would be shocked that Mike Gesicki played less than 50% of the snaps for the Bengals last year. It's very, very rare that a tight end is productive playing less than 50% of the snaps. But Mike Gesicki, actually, to be exact, he played 46% of the snaps, which is why he was very boom bust. But it's because he's essentially a wide receiver at the tight end spot. And so there's other guys. There's Drew Sample, Tanner Hudson, guys that have been on this team before. So it's going to be tough for Tanner McLaughlin. But I wouldn't be shocked if he kind of moves up and becomes like the tight end 3 for this team. And then we'll see from there what that turns into. Julian Hill. Did you know that Julian Hill actually played a higher percentage of his team snaps than Mike Gesicki did? Julian Hill was at like 47%. I've been talking about Julian Hill for a couple of years now. I just liked his profile a bit. I think he was originally undrafted to the Cardinals and then got over to the Dolphins, played at Campbell. He's just a big athletic tight end. He's 6'4", 250. He can move faster than maybe 6'4", 250 players can do. And he played in 47% of the snaps last year. He was their tight end 2. He didn't do anything with those, but so I just kind of look at what Jonnu Smith did for this team last year. Now, I'm not trying to say that, if Jonnu Smith gets hurt, Julian Hill is going to do what Jonnu Smith did. I don't necessarily believe that to be the case, but what if the tight end is a big part of their offense? What if this is kind of how they roll now? It wouldn't shock me if Julian Hill is at least becomes like a top 15 tight end or something. If something were to happen to Jonnu Smith, it would also. I'm not saying it's likely, but I don't think it's impossible to think that at all. So Julian Hill, go out and grab him. He's a guy that does play for Miami, and he's out there on the field. Johnny Munt for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's the story about Johnny Munt. If you guys remember, Johnny Munt used to be on the Vikings. He was on the Vikings the last few years. TJ Hawkinson blew out his knee or got hit in the knee and missed the last, I think, 2 games of the year in 2023. And Johnny Munt was the tight end for the Vikings, who kind of took over the Hawkinson role and actually kind of produced in that role. He, over those last 2 weeks, very small sample size, but over those last 2 weeks of the season, Johnny Munt averaged 6.5 targets, 4.5 catches, and about 50 yards per game. If your tight end's giving you 4 or 5 catches and 50 yards a game, oh, and by the way, half a touchdown, he's going to be a low-end tight end one. Now, coming into 2024, we all knew Hawkinson was going to miss some time. I was kind of like sneaky, like, hey, Johnny Munt could actually be pretty good the first 6 weeks of the season for the month of September and into mid-October. It didn't turn out that way. He did nothing. I think they actually used Josh Oliver a little bit more in the receiving game, which was, surprised me a bit. So, Johnny Munt now goes to Jacksonville, where we all assume it's Brenton Strange, and it probably is Brenton Strange because Brenton Strange is a second-round pick. We've seen him produce a little bit, but Brenton Strange is not Liam Cohen's guy. He didn't draft Brenton Strange. That was from a previous regime, right? And so what if it's just Johnny Munt? What if Johnny Munt, who Liam Cohen did bring in and signed to his team, what if it's just Johnny Munt that is the tight end that they want to roll with? Stranger things have happened here. I don't think it's likely that it's going to happen, but what if it is? And if Johnny Munt, could he be a 4-catch, 40 to 50 yard type of tight end each and every week, which is going to be streamable at the very least? He can be. He can be that type of player. So I don't know. It's just a player that without injury could sneakily be more productive than we all expect in 2025. The last one here is Cade Stover. Cade Stover, who was a 4th-round pick by the Texans last year. Cade Stover, who played with C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. And Cade Stover, who I think he had 1 or 2 moments last year where he flashed a little bit. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of a younger, maybe better tight end I'm not saying he's better than Dalton Schultz, but a younger tight end that could potentially be better. Kind of getting on the field a little bit for the Texans, giving them a bit more explosion. Dalton Schultz, he was good because he caught a lot of passes, but he just wasn't really that good with it. He's not this great athletic, amazing tight end, Dalton Schultz. 53 catches, 532 yards is fine. 10 yards a carry, a catch and stuff like that. But I don't know. The likelihood of Cade Stover, I think he has to get past Dalton Schultz and Tommy Tremble, or Brevin Jordan. But the likelihood of it happening is low, but he is a former 4th-round pick, which is decent draft capital. So a guy that I'll potentially stash for 1 more year just to see what happens. That's all I have for you guys in today's show. Again, hit the like and subscribe button. We'll see you all in the next video.